The first shipment of Pfizer vaccines has landed in the country. Let's discuss this. I'm joined by infectious diseases physician Dr. Paul Griffin from UQ. Thanks so much for your time. This is a big milestone, isn't it, for the country?
Look, it's fantastic. It was a huge milestone when that vaccine was approved based on the data, obviously, to support doing that. And to actually have supply of that vaccine now in the country really represents another phase in our combat of this virus.
In the next few days as well, confirmation of approval from the TGA when it comes to the Oxford University AstraZeneca. So how do you see Australia's position more generally when it comes to that health and vaccine response?
Look, I think we're in a great position. The Pfizer vaccine is proving safe and efficacious, and we now have that in our hands ready to use. The AstraZeneca vaccine has some very promising data from clinical trials, and that should be approved fairly soon. And the big strength of that vaccine is it's also going to be manufactured here in Australia, and so we have a lot of doses of that one available. And then we have a third option potentially coming up behind as well in Novavax once they have some more data. So I think we're in an excellent position in this country to make sure everyone can get vaccinated with a safe and effective vaccine.
And it starts from a good base, despite the hiccup in Victoria at the moment and other snap lockdowns that we've seen. Community transmission in the country is negligible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's been a little unfortunate. We've seen some cases escape from the quarantine of those international return travellers, but by and large, we've done an excellent job of minimising the impact of those escaped cases. And people in those areas need to be commended for doing the right thing. And certainly, if we can keep a lid on some of those escape events and get the vaccine rolled out, we'll be in a tremendous position.
What's your analysis and assessment of how the government is looking for its rollout in terms of who gets what vaccine and when?
It's obviously going to be a huge logistical undertaking to roll these vaccines out, and I think it has to happen in a prioritised way. And we've got some federally agreed tiers or prioritisations that I think make perfect sense. We're going to start in 1A with those people at highest risk of acquiring the infection. So that's people working in hotel quarantine, the aged care sector, and our frontline healthcare workers. And so I think starting there makes perfect sense. And then we'll gradually roll out not only the Pfizer vaccine, but also AstraZeneca in a prioritised way to hopefully the rest of the population not long thereafter.
Dr. Griffin, how important is it that there is a vast majority of Australians that take the jab?
Look, we've done a fantastic job, there's no question. We've controlled the virus very well, but we don't want to continue having to have snap lockdowns and not being able to travel and have all of these restrictions in place. And so if we can roll out a vaccine to the majority of the population while still having some fundamental mitigation strategies employed in parallel, then our control will improve and we had to regain some of those freedoms that I think everyone really wants to get back, including hopefully not having the domestic borders at least locked down as often and maybe even getting closer to international travel. So while none of those things will happen overnight, this is certainly a big step in the right direction.
Dr. Paul Kelly, or Professor Paul Kelly, I should say, and Brendan Murphy as well, and the Health Minister, among others, have been adamant that both of the main vaccines that we have are effective and they're safe. What's your message when it comes to those?
Look, absolutely right. I'd completely concur with that. And we know people are trying to draw comparisons, but the clinical trials weren't designed to be able to compare head to head. And, while AstraZeneca certainly did release some results that were interpreted as being a little underwhelming, when you actually look at the performance of that vaccine, it is performing very well. And the main thing to say is our regulator, our Therapeutic Goods Administration, are incredibly rigorous. And so if they approve a vaccine, we can all be completely confident it's safe and effective. And so I'd certainly encourage people to heed the advice of the regulator and the government and not get, misled in making comparisons between those vaccines. Both of them are extraordinarily effective and very safe. And, the main advice now is that the impact of the vaccine rollout will be entirely determined by people coming along to get their vaccine. So if you're eligible, I'd certainly do that. Come and get the vaccine that you're eligible for.
Yeah, definitely a positive message. I think let's hope that most Australians listen to that message, Dr. Griffin. Just finally, one of the unknowns, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's been data in recent days that suggests this, but the transmission component. We know that these vaccines help in preventing serious disease. What do we know, if anything, about what they do in terms of preventing transmission of COVID-19?
Look, we know that's something that's harder to measure in the clinical trial, so we don't have a lot of data on that yet, but that's not to say that we know they don't do that. We just haven't been able to show exactly how much they do. And certainly from the AstraZeneca candidate, we've had some data suggest that at least people that weren't symptomatic, the amount of shedding or the amount of positive detections there were significantly reduced, which is good news. But we'll need to get some more data before we know exactly how much they block transmission, but it's likely they all do to at least some degree. And what we know is they prevent people getting symptomatic infection and certainly progressing to severe disease. So while we can't say exactly the impact of transmission blocking, the vaccines are doing an amazing job in the parts of the world where they're rolled out, and it's just great that we're now in that position to start doing that as well.
It is great, and also we very much appreciate your insights today. Infectious diseases physician Dr. Paul Griffin, thanks for that.
Thank you.